Men only get emotionally attached when these things happen. Psychology amazing facts. There's a persistent myth that men are emotionally shallow, that they can't or won't attach deeply, but that's not true. Men do form emotional bonds, strong ones, but they form under specific psychological conditions. You have to understand the psychological architecture of a man. He doesn't just give away his emotional core, he defends it until something truly shakes the walls. Let's break it down. First, a man doesn't fall for love alone. Love, as commonly defined, isn't enough. Men become emotionally attached when they feel respected. Respect is the soil in which their emotional roots grow. When a man feels that his opinion is valued, his presence appreciated, not for what he gives, but for who he is, then, and only then, does his heart begin to open. Love feels good, but respect makes him trust it. And trust is the gateway to deep emotional bonding. Second, shared struggle creates a bond stronger than comfort ever could. When a man and a woman go through something hard together, when they fight for something, survive something, build something, that experience embeds itself emotionally. It becomes a narrative of loyalty. Men attach through loyalty much more than through sentiment. A man who sees that you stood by him when it would have been easier to walk away, that's the moment his emotions start to settle and anchor in you. Third, men need to feel irreplaceable, not in an arrogant way, but in a primal psychological way. A man attaches when he believes that what he brings, his strength, his presence, his protection, is not only noticed but needed, when he sees that you rely on him, not in a dependent, helpless way, but in a trusting way, he begins to invest emotionally. He needs to feel like his role in your life is unique, valuable, and specific. That's when he stops drifting and starts building. And finally, emotional safety coupled with physical intimacy unlocks something few understand. Physical connection is easy, emotional connection is not. But when a man feels safe enough to show his weakness, to cry, to confess his fear, to talk about his father or his failures, and sees that he's still accepted, still admired, still touched, that intimacy bonds him in ways words can't explain. The body reacts, the brain records, the heart remembers. That's when emotional attachment becomes permanent. So don't believe for a second that men don't get emotionally attached. They do, but only when the right doors are opened, and they're rarely opened by accident. Respect, loyalty, need, and safety. These are the keys. When those align, the emotional walls fall. And when they fall, you don't just have a man who's there, you have a man who's all in. Men often navigate the world with an internal compass that is calibrated more by respect than by affection. While love is often viewed as the ultimate emotional bond, for many men, it is respect that opens the door to deeper emotional investment. Love may be desired, but respect is essential. It is the lens through which a man interprets his value in a relationship. When he feels respected, he experiences a kind of psychological validation that tells him he matters, not just for what he does, but for who he is at his core. This isn't about ego or dominance, it's about identity. From a very early age, men are conditioned to equate their worth with performance, whether it's providing, solving problems, or protecting. These roles become part of their identity, and when these roles are acknowledged and appreciated, a man doesn't just feel liked, he feels seen, and that feeling of being seen for his essence, not just his actions, is what makes him start to emotionally attach. When a woman expresses admiration for his character, his judgment, or his strength, not with flattery but with sincerity, it resonates. It touches something ancient and instinctual. It tells him that he is enough and that his presence has weight in her world. Conversely, when a man feels dismissed, belittled, or constantly corrected, it chips away at the foundation of his emotional openness. He may still function in the relationship, still show up physically or fulfill duties, but emotionally he begins to retreat. Because disrespect doesn't just hurt, it confuses. It creates an internal contradiction. If he's giving his best and it's not good enough, then why risk offering anything deeper? Emotional connection, for a man, is a risk. It's a form of exposure, and exposure requires trust. Respect is the only thing that makes that trust feel earned rather than exploited. In many relationships, women look for emotional expression and vulnerability as signs of connection. but they often overlook how deeply tied that vulnerability is to a man's sense of being respected. A man is more likely to open up emotionally when he believes his thoughts won't be dismissed, his fears won't be mocked, and his efforts won't be taken for granted. It's not that he doesn't feel. He often feels profoundly, but he only shares those feelings when he senses that they will be held with care and not used against him later. The language of respect isn't just in words, it's in tone, in timing, in trust. It's in allowing him space to figure things out without pressuring him into instant emotional disclosure. It's in listening without interrupting, asking without accusing, and affirming without controlling. These subtle signals tell a man, "You're safe here. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you." And when he feels that, when respect wraps itself around his emotional world like a shield, that's when attachment begins to take root. In romantic relationships, when a man sees that his partner values his decisions, supports his goals, and treats his vision with seriousness, something powerful happens. He begins to invest, not just with his time and resources, but with his heart. He begins to plan, to protect, to dream, not alone, but with her in mind. His emotional attachment deepens with every moment he feels honored, and it weakens with every moment he feels dismissed. So while love is a powerful emotion, respect is the condition that allows love to grow into something lasting. For men, respect is not a bonus. It's the baseline, and only when that baseline is met does emotional attachment begin to truly form. When a man goes through hardship with someone, the connection that forms is not simply emotional, it's primal. Shared struggle is one of the most powerful bonding mechanisms known to human psychology. For men in particular, emotional attachment often does not arise in times of ease or luxury, but rather in those raw, unfiltered moments when survival, sacrifice, or striving is at the center of experience. When a man sees someone stand beside him in a storm, not just when the sky is blue, something fundamental in him shifts. He stops viewing that person as a companion of convenience and starts seeing them as a trusted partner in life's battle. This is because men are deeply wired to value loyalty. Loyalty is not about blind devotion or passive support. It is about being present when the odds are stacked against you, when things go wrong, when patience is tested, when a man is struggling, financially, emotionally, or physically, and the person next to him chooses to stay, not just stay but participate in the effort to push through, he feels something rare and lasting, trust, and trust is the root from which emotional attachment grows. Without it, nothing lasting forms. In the mind of a man, loyalty demonstrated through action means more than 1,000 words. He notices who listens when he's quiet, who helps when he doesn't ask, who doesn't flinch when he admits fear or confusion. He pays attention to who keeps their promises, who sticks around after the argument, who believes in him even when he doubts himself. These are not small things. They are the blueprint of emotional intimacy for a man. And once loyalty is established through shared difficulty, the emotional doors begin to open, sometimes slowly, but almost always surely. It's important to understand that for men, suffering and growth are often intertwined. Men don't just want to be understood. They want to be endured with. They bond with those who aren't afraid to be in the trenches, and it's in those trenches where real connection is forged. A woman who supports a man during his grind, when he's working towards something that hasn't materialized yet, when he's taking hits and trying to rebuild, is doing more than just being present. She's placing a bet on him. She's saying, "I see what you can become, and I'm here for the journey." That loyalty is remembered, internalized, and respected on a soul, deep level. Men do not forget the people who were loyal during their lowest points. In fact, those memories become sacred when things eventually improve. When he's stronger, more stable, more confident, he often looks back at those hard times not with bitterness but with gratitude, and part of that gratitude is directed toward the person who didn't abandon him. That is when attachment solidifies. It's no longer based on chemistry or attraction alone. It's rooted in shared experience, in earned trust, in mutual endurance. This is why relationships built on shared struggle often last longer than those built on superficial comfort. The emotional attachment that results is not fragile or easily shaken. It has been tested. A man may laugh and celebrate with many, but he loves and commits to the one who walked with him through fire. He may remember fun moments with others, but he cherishes the one who held his hand in the dark. That's the nature of masculine emotional bonding. It's not formed in luxury, it's formed in adversity. So when someone chooses to suffer with him rather than avoid discomfort, to encourage him when he doubts himself, to challenge him when he's stuck, that person becomes unforgettable. Emotional attachment doesn't just grow from kindness. It grows from shared battlefields where loyalty was proven and not just promised. And once a man identifies someone as loyal through those trials, he gives a piece of himself that cannot be bought, faked, or forced. It's earned, and once earned, it's incredibly hard to lose. One of the most powerful emotional triggers for a man is the experience of being truly needed. Not needed in the sense of filling a gap anyone could fill, but needed in a way that makes him feel irreplaceable, like who he is and what he brings to a relationship. Specific, valued, and recognized. This need to be needed isn't about ego, it's about purpose. Men are deeply wired to derive emotional meaning from their role in the lives of those they care about. When a man sees that his presence makes a tangible difference, that he is not just wanted, essential, emotional attachment begins to take root. Much of male identity is tied to function. From an evolutionary standpoint, men have often been protectors, providers, and problem solvers. While modern relationships may look different from those ancient roles, the psychological imprint remains. A man feels emotionally anchored when he sees that his strength, whether physical, emotional, or intellectual, is being used for something meaningful. When he feels like a pillar rather than just a placeholder, he starts investing not only with his actions but with his emotions. Being irreplaceable doesn't mean being perfect. It means being seen in a way that says, "There's no one else I'd rather go through life with but you." It means his unique way of thinking, his manner of handling stress, his particular quirks, his style of affection. All of it is appreciated and not taken for granted. When a woman acknowledges those traits and shows that they matter, it feeds a man's sense of identity within the relationship. That, in turn, deepens his emotional investment. Men are often hesitant to show vulnerability unless they feel secure in their role. Emotional openness requires stability, and stability comes when a man feels like he is not only accepted but fundamentally relied upon. If he believes his presence is interchangeable, he may remain physically present but emotionally distant. On the other hand, if he feels his absence would truly matter, that the emotional structure of the relationship would shift without him, he becomes emotionally engaged on a deeper level. He begins to identify the relationship as a source of purpose, not just pleasure. This emotional response is especially strong in moments where he is allowed to lead, fix, protect, or comfort. When he sees that his problem-solving skills calm anxiety, that his voice brings reassurance, that his guidance creates direction, it validates his masculine identity. He no longer feels like he's competing for space. He feels like he's part of the foundation. And when a man feels foundational, he stops hovering on the surface and starts rooting himself emotionally. In day-to-day interactions, small expressions of this irreplaceability can make a huge impact. Asking his opinion before making a big decision, thanking him for showing up consistently, letting him know you feel safer or stronger because of his presence. These aren't just compliments. They are confirmations that he matters in a way no one else does, and it is through these confirmations that emotional ties are strengthened. When a man realizes that who he is cannot be easily substituted, he begins to guard the relationship. He begins to see it as something to protect and nurture. His emotional attachment is no longer a reaction. It becomes a commitment. He sees himself as responsible for the emotional well-being of the unit, not because he has to be, but because he wants to be. And this sense of purpose fuels long-term emotional loyalty. Ultimately, a man's emotional attachment grows in proportion to how needed he feels. Not superficially needed, not manipulatively needed, but genuinely, deeply needed for who he is and what he brings. When he senses that the relationship wouldn't feel the same without him, that he's not just a part of it, but a defining part, that's when emotional bonds form that are not easily broken. For men, emotional attachment is not simply built on shared words or constant verbal affirmations. More often, it's created when emotional safety and physical intimacy align to form an environment where he can truly let his guard down. In a world where men are often taught to suppress emotion, to be strong at all costs, the moments when they feel safe enough to be vulnerable become rare, precious, and deeply impactful. That emotional safety, paired with intimacy that feels genuine rather than transactional, becomes the exact condition that allows a man to bond on a level that he may not even fully understand himself. Many men walk through life in a kind of emotional armor. They're trained, either socially or personally, to protect themselves from judgment, to appear competent, and to remain in control. Because of this, opening up emotionally feels like exposure. It feels like stepping into a battlefield without a shield. But when a man encounters someone who responds to his emotional openness with warmth, understanding, and stability instead of criticism or discomfort, something profound occurs. He begins to view that space as safe, not weak, not coddling, but deeply human and trustworthy. When emotional safety is present, a man feels he can speak without being ridiculed, fail without being shamed, and express fear or confusion without being seen as less of a man. That freedom to be honest creates a pathway to emotional intimacy. It tells him, you can be your full self here. You don't have to perform, you don't have to hold it all together, and you don't have to be invincible. In this space, you're not judged, you're accepted, and that kind of safety isn't just appreciated, it's remembered. It becomes the place he wants to return to when the world becomes too loud or heavy. Now, when this sense of safety is paired with physical intimacy, touch, closeness, connection, it creates an even stronger bond. Physical intimacy for a man isn't just about gratification. When he trusts the person he's with emotionally, physical closeness becomes something more meaningful. It becomes a silent affirmation that says, I see you, I accept you, I choose you. That combination of trust and touch reaches a level of bonding that words often can't. The brain begins associating that person with peace, pleasure, and emotional grounding. That's when attachment deepens. That's when love evolves from a feeling into a presence. It's important to note that this kind of bond doesn't happen when intimacy is offered only during moments of convenience. It happens when it's given in moments of emotional truth. When he's broken, when he's unsure, when he's quiet. Physical intimacy that happens in the context of emotional understanding tells a man that he is more than a role or a provider. He's human, and his humanity is embraced. And when a man feels both wanted and understood in that way, it begins to rewire how he sees the relationship. It becomes a sanctuary, not a task. In many cases, men don't even consciously realize they're becoming attached in this way, but their behavior changes. They start prioritizing, protecting, planning. They begin to invest time and energy, not because they feel obligated, but because they feel safe and connected. That emotional safety and physical closeness blend to create an internal shift, a recognition that this person isn't just a part of his life, they're essential to it. The deepest emotional attachments are rarely loud. They are formed in quiet moments of honesty, comfort, and closeness. When a man lies next to someone and feels at peace instead of pressure, when he speaks his truth and isn't met with a lecture but with listening, when his flaws are not fixed but understood, those are the moments that stay with him. And in those moments, attachment is not only formed, it is sealed. So when we talk about men and emotional attachment, we're not speaking about something shallow or temporary. We're speaking about something deeply rooted in psychology, identity, and trust. Men don't just connect because they want to. They connect when their core emotional needs are met in ways that speak to their inner world. They attach when they feel respected, not just loved. They bond when they've shared struggles and seen loyalty proven. They open their hearts when they feel truly needed, not replaceable, and they build lasting connections when emotional safety meets genuine, meaningful intimacy. These aren't vague ideas, they are patterns, real, powerful, and consistent. The key to a man's emotional world isn't manipulation, pressure, or overanalysis. It's understanding, and when you understand how and when emotional attachment forms in a man, you begin to realize that he's not emotionally detached. He's emotionally careful. He's not unwilling to love. He's just waiting to love in a place that feels real. And once he finds that place, once those emotional doors open, the attachment he forms can be steady, committed, and fiercely loyal. So to anyone seeking connection with a man, remember, it's not about changing him, it's about creating an environment where he can show you who he really is. That's when emotional attachment happens. That's when it lasts. Thank you for listening. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep learning, keep growing, and always seek deeper understanding in your relationships. Take care of yourself and each other. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.